the former Minister of Justice of Iceland and member of the International Delegation to Imrali, dear Ögmundur Jónasson. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. As you know, last week, Turkey started a new invasion attack to northern Iraq. And then after these developments, it's very important to hear your evaluations as well. So let's start with the Turkey's friendship situation, which is on the all over the headlines these days. The Turkish Defense Ministry has claimed that Turkey's present offensive against the Kurds is being carried out in coordination with the countries and friends and allies. Who are these friends and allies in particular? First of all, what is the evidence for the complicity of foreign and regional powers in Turkey's latest military operation?
Well, the allies are first and foremost the NATO countries. And there seems to be a pattern that Turkish authorities, they seem to call these countries to witness whenever they are about to commit their worst atrocities. And if we go back in time 7 years to the summer of 2015, when Turkey was about to launch an attack on Kurds in northern Syria, and also a massive attack within the boundaries of Turkey, an attack or offensive that lasted for more than 2 years and left many towns and cities in ruins. Then this was done with the compliance of NATO. On July the 28th, 2015, an emergency meeting was called in Brussels at the request of Turkey to tell the NATO countries what was about to happen. And at least publicly, there was not a whisper of protest. Now, the Turkish authorities always say that they are fighting terrorists. And this time they say they will not stop until they have killed the last terrorist. I think this was how the defense secretary phrased it. But what do they in fact do? They are not simply fighting guerrillas or armed defense forces. They are attacking an entire community. And this is what amounts to a crime against humanity. And that is how the People's Tribunal defined it in 2018. But you ask, what is the proof of NATO complicity? Silence silence on their behalf is the evidence. Why, for instance, I ask, does the United States not speak up? The present Turkish offensive is a clear violation of the ceasefire brokered by the United States in October 2019. A ceasefire the Kurds are fully upholding. So the evidence of complicity is inaction and silence.
Yeah, you underlined the silence, and what does the silence and refusal to criticize about the international community and its responsibilities? Very short, very briefly, please.
Well, in short, it says that the international institutional world is not rising up to its responsibilities. And I want to mention three things in particular. Firstly, when the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, had a meeting with Erdogan the other day, he commended the President of Turkey for his invaluable peacemaking contribution and efforts to stop the war. But which war? The war in Ukraine, not the brutal war he himself was waging against innocent people. The assaults on towns and villages, killing indiscriminately people. Not a word from the Secretary General of the United Nations to that effect. That's the first example. Now, the second, there was an accusation that the Turkish army has been using chemical weapons in the present offensive. Now I ask, why does the Organization for the Prevention of Use of Chemical Weapons not investigate this as has been requested? It is not doing that. And thirdly, I could mention that the Turkish army has been destroying cultural heritage sites, and for instance, they almost erased to the ground much of the center of the ancient city of Ahmed in the years 2015-16. Not a word from the United Nations on this. So these are examples of institutions not rising to their responsibilities. But not everybody is silent. I saw this morning that the Scottish trade unions, they have issued a strong protest against the Turkish assaults and offensive in northern Syria and South Kurdistan. So not everybody is silent.
Thank you. What do you believe to be Turkey's real objective in launching this operation at this time? Lastly, what is that dirty war's motivation? How are you going to comment on that? Shortly, please.
Well, shortly, to destroy all opposition and resistance by the Kurds in the areas under attack, and in the hope of creating a buffer zone, what they call. And my suspicion is that they are doing this now because the global attention is on Ukraine, and they think they might better get away with it under those circumstances.
Thank you. We have only a few minutes left, so I would like to ask you more questions. How can we make sure that more international media and political attention is given to Turkey's current actions that amount to war crimes?
Well, it's imperative that the matter be raised in every parliament in the world, that every trade union, wherever it is, raises the matter, all human rights organizations as well. I was part of an Imrali delegation for the 5th time, I think it was, earlier this year. And it was the biggest delegation to date. And I hope that this is indicative of a rising international concern about these things.
Thank you very much, dear Ögmundur. Lastly, peace negotiations are the only realistic way to resolve the Turkey and Kurdish conflict that had been going on for decades now. How can our own governments and international institutions be brought to recognize this?
The only way to end these atrocities, this unjustifiable warfare against the Kurds, is peace, is through peace talks. And this is what we saw in the years between 2013 and 15, for almost 2 years at least. The groundwork was then laid for a peaceful coexistence. But then Erdogan in 2015 stopped the negotiations and started this offensive against the Kurds. I think the key to a peaceful solution is to bring Abdullah Ocalan to the negotiating table. And then of course, the prison doors must be opened again. But that is the only way we can resume the peace talks, which were fruitful at the time and promising. And I think we must convince the international community that this is the case. So open the doors at Imrali, start peace talks again.
Dear Ögmundur Jónasson, the former Minister of Justice of Iceland and member of the International Delegation to Imrali, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.